welcome to another episode of the Reverse Mentor Lab,
where we engage with thinkers from around the world to explore how leaders of today can learn from leaders of tomorrow.
You're back with your hosts. I'm Joshua.
And I'm Jens.
Hey Jens, great to be back. I enjoy your purple hazy background that you've got going there.
Hey, great to see you again. Yeah, and I even have placed the caps because it's too hot inside here today. So I thought about I need to wear my flat cap for you, but like crazy. It's not hot, but it's like humid, and I'm dying.
Yeah, you'll know as you get to know me better that when I start wearing caps, it normally means that my hair is too long and it's starting to annoy me. So I need to venture out to the hairdresser to go and get a snip. But Jens, it's good to be back today, and today we're talking about incentives. So to maybe kick things off, is human beings, we funny creatures. We like to have incentives to change our behavior, a reward or a driver to trigger us into action. How can we explore this concept to maybe better understand the motivation of people, how incentives can drive changes in behavior and things like that? So I'm looking forward to getting to know some of your experience around this topic. And so to kick off the conversation, I'm going to ask you a fairly broad question. What is an incentive?
Incentive. Yeah. So for me, it's a trigger for a human. So a trigger for a person to do something they might not be doing naturally yet. So that's for me the simplest way of describing an incentive. It's like, and there are a lot of facets, but let's turn this question around to you as well before we go into details. What is it for you?
Yes, I really like what you said. It's an incentive to enhance or get a person to do something that they're not doing yet. And for me, I think an incentive is a reward for achieving a specific behavior or engaging in a specific practice. And I think that's where I'll start my thinking, and where I've started my thinking in the past around defining incentives. And I think one of the things is, we started in the intro by saying humans are funny creatures. And I think that we are. And I think that if we think about the way that people are incentivized to change, why is it that when we do things, and you can think of the marshmallow experiment, where there's the little young person inside of the room, and they gifted one marshmallow, and they're saying, if you wait, you can get 2 marshmallows. And I think that that's an incentive, and quite a basic analogy to think about how rewards can drive desired behaviors, but also how you can use incentives to maybe get to understand the way people are thinking in a slightly different method. Yeah,
well, love that. For me, it's all about, because it's linked to behaviors, and for me, behaviors only change if needs, dreams, and desires are met or not met. So it's always, behaviors is for me an outcome of needs, dreams, and desires met or not met, which then goes into, hey, I want to fulfill my needs, dreams, and desires. That's why I'm changing my behavior towards something. Or I don't want, and then I'm changing in the other direction. So that's for me from a high level perspective. But it all starts with, because a lot of, if you look into the business context, a lot of people might think, hey, if I'm getting paid more, I'm working better, which is proven to be wrong. It's an incentive, but it's proven to be wrong on a long-term base in a lot of studies. But for me, it's all about, how do you understand this needs and dreams and desires if you want to use an incentive to motivate someone to change behaviors. So if you understand what they're after, if you take this young guy sitting in front of a marshmallow, I mean, this young person is eager for getting the endorphin rush on eating sugar. They are not thinking like this. They're definitely, most of the time, at least, not hungry. So it's not about hunger, which is like a base need. It's more about, hey, I want to get this rush. That's an exciting thing. Eating a marshmallow, I want to taste the marshmallow on my tongue. It's this kind of things. So they're using their imagination and understanding what it would be to eat it right now. And then some people are saying, no, I can't wait anymore. and then they're eating it. And some people are getting the understanding, so they're processing it differently and then saying, I'm waiting and I get two of this exciting thing. And that's again, it's all based on the needs, dreams, and desires. I'm pretty sure, and there are studies as well, like if you sleep longer and if you're well slept, you don't carve sugar in the same way. So I think there are a lot of things which are based on needs, dreams, and desires we're even not consciously aware of. And then that's also the hardest part on, if you're a manager, finding the right incentives for motivating your team to change behaviors. But it's maybe already going too deep into the weeds.
I don't think so at all, Jens. And I'm just going to circle back to what you mentioned about the outcome. So the behavior in terms of understanding and incentive. And I think, one from an individual perspective and two from a business perspective is inside of design thinking and, design practices, we're often taught to, put yourself in the shoes of the customer, or put yourself in the mindset of a customer. And what does that do when you start to understand the incentives that you're offering that customer or that person inside of your business to engage in that specific behavior that you're trying to get them to do? What are the specific outcomes that you're looking to get or to gravitate towards by setting up that journey? So if you think about it from a simple customer journey perspective, and you are now designing that experiment around that child sitting there with the marshmallow, what are the specific outcomes, desired behaviors that you as a business might be looking for in terms of setting up your customer journey? And how then could you guide that desired behavior with incentives, maybe at a subconscious and a conscious level, in terms of the way that you're interacting inside of that space? And I think, the way that you created and what you teed up around, a manager trying to understand the incentives of a young employee on their team, for example, may just be as simple as allowing that young employee to leave the office at 5 p.m. because they really like surfing, and it's high tide on Thursday, and all of a sudden they want to go and surf. And it's really just about understanding that incentive that will then unlock a different way of thinking and a different management style and response from that employee, or that young employee, next time you ask them to do something.
Yeah, exactly what it is. And for me, that's, a lot of people might think of, hey, putting an incentive to change behavior is manipulation. For me, it's the opposite. If you do it right, without any bad negative thinking behind it, you use an incentive to create an offer that the other person can accept or not accept. And that's, for me, a fascinating way of looking into the whole incentive structure and behavior changes. If we take your example with hey, Thursday is high tide, getting surfing, a leader of a business can offer this to the young person and say, hey, if you want, you can go out surfing on Thursday, or can go home earlier. And then the person can decide, hey, that's something I would like to do, or I don't want to do. And yes, of course, there are a lot of subtle things which are between the lines, which depends on the relationship between these two people, if the person feels threatened because the other person is allowing it or not. But for me, in coming back to the offer and the manipulation, for me, it's really important. And that's also going back towards customers, is if you do this in a well thought through way, which is not about what can I get out of it, it's more about, hey, this is an offer which allows you to do things differently. That's, for me, the first step into a new direction, which I think a lot of businesses and people, specifically in a generational exchange, would benefit from.
Yeah, and I just want to double click on the word manipulation that you brought to the table here, Jens. And inside of an incentive structure, we do sometimes think and gravitate towards thinking of incentives as done to manipulate a desired behavior or a desired outcome. And I think, especially inside of a customer journey experience, and this is something maybe for experienced thinkers to think about inside of a B2C, so business to customer exchange, is how can you think about, rather than manipulating behavior in terms of a ClickFunnels approach, at different stages of a ClickFunnels, you're going to reward or give consumers, you're interacting at the different levels of that funnel with different rewards for the desired behavior that they're achieving. Rather think of it about what is the customer gaining from that experience, and then how are they giving back to the business inside of that space. And I think that that exchange, not only from a learning perspective, but also just from a trust building perspective, because I think one of the biggest things that brands are experiencing directly inside of the B2C space is around that trust element. And trust is something that takes years and years to build from a brand perspective. But once you've got that initial engagement and that initial trust from a customer, you know, there's that saying that the customer lifetime value is far higher than the customer acquisition cost. And I think it's far easier to retain a customer than to go out and source a new customer. And if you think about that and you flip it now and you think about that inside of your own business, how are you doing that to engage with employees inside of that space? Because I think one of the biggest things that we haven't necessarily touched on in this conversation yet, but I'm sure we will in time, is around the incentive structure to keep top talent at an organization. And I don't just think it's going to be a monetary standpoint anymore in terms of getting people to change their behavior and stay with the company, for example. I think it's going to be far broader in terms of the overall experience and the identification that young thinkers have with companies going forward.
Yeah, 100% agree. Before going into talents, I would like to double click on the customer point. I 100% agree on that one as well, because it's the value you create as a business that's perceived to be a value from the customer. So it's not what you think is value. So it's like, hey, you're selling, let's say, shoes, and you sell the value of the shoe to the person, but the person is perceiving that shoe and linking it to freedom because it's a running shoe, and they're thinking about running in the wild with these shoes. So what the perceived value might be way higher than for you as the owner of the store selling the shoe. And I think that's for me, as part of understanding the offer, which is an incentive opportunity for a person to accept or not to accept. It's the same part of what is the value that the person who is getting the offer perceiving of it. Like you said, what is the value for the person who is interested in going out surfing on Thursday, or the perceived value of going out surfing? That might be in depending on the space of that person, where this person is in, that might be the most important part of the week, of the month, even going out surfing with the buddies. That's more important than work for them, because it's part of their lifestyle, it's part of their culture, it's part of their community. So the value, the perceived value of offering this, then compared to offering a pay rise or whatever, might be completely different. And I think that's really the understanding of what you offer as a trigger or as an incentive to change behavior, and what is the value and perceived value is an interesting thought to explore if you look into incentive structures. And if we now link this to talents, that's why I was starting on that. If you want to retain the best talent in the world, yes, it's about basics, which is like they need to be paid well. They need to be paid according to what the market level is and all these kind of things. But it's more perceived value of the person, which is, hey, can I grow in this organization? Can I do what I believe I want to learn? Can I be part of something bigger than me? It's like, hey, I want to work in this organization because they focus very much on sustainability, and I believe that due to using these products or supporting this product development, the world will be a better place. That they feel part of the community, similar to the surfing part, which helps them to fulfill their lives in different ways. So I think there, specifically when we go into talents, it's super important for organizations to do that individually, but as well equally on a company level and global level if it's a global company. A lot said.
Lots of gems raised there, Jens, and I'm sort of going to bring the conversation today to round it out at a bit of a close. And I'm going to, instead of offering different perspectives from a generational perspective around the challenge, I'm going to ask just a broader challenge, where I'm going to say that instead of trying to understand incentives, and I think that we are in quite a crucial point in terms of the world right now in terms of what we think about incentives and how we use incentives to drive desired behavior and also to connect with people. And the challenge is, coming from a young thinker, but it's going to talk to young thinkers and experienced thinkers. And it's going to be around a call to action to connect with people. And I think that when we think about incentives, sometimes we separate incentives out and we put incentives over here on the far left-hand side. And we say, these are the incentive pool that we've got. But we actually don't understand and connect them with the right people inside of the people pool on the right-hand side. How can you sort of merge the two together and connect and understand people so that the incentives that you are creating actually identify and offer people that you're trying to connect with the best opportunities to drive and to change their behavior going forward. So a big call to action around connecting with people and also giving them the time and opportunity to present you with feedback, to present you with questions and things like that going forward.
Yeah, love it. Short, quick, and to the point. Yeah, thanks, Joshua, for today's podcast. I think that's an interesting topic which might be interesting for people to dig more into, and which we could easily do an hour conversation or even more. But yeah, thank you for today and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Jens. We'll have to bring it into one of our live sessions soon.
Oh, yes, true.
Thanks for listening and joining us on the journey that is the Reverse Mental Lab. If anything fascinated you in the discussion that we had today, you're welcome to set up a 15-minute coffee chat with us. Our emails are in the show notes, and you can also connect with us on our website, thexyzplayground.com.